Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everybody. Let me begin with a story. This is a story about Maulana Tawazu. Maulana Tawazu is a young Imam. He's about 22 years old, just graduated, and it's Friday. He's single, so he's living with his parents. And Friday morning, late morning, around 11:30, and he still hasn't got ready. So his father Jalaluddin shouts and says, Maulana, it's Jummah time. We're going to go to Jummah. And this young Maulana, Imam Tawazu, has a large congregation of about 500. And he says, Father, I'm just tired today. And anyway, those people don't like me. And the khutbah is always dull and boring. And Jalaluddin, his father, says, son, you are going to go because you've got a responsibility. And it doesn't matter whether people like you or not, you do it for God's sake. And furthermore, you are the khatib. And, this is, I think, where all of us want to shy away from taking the leadership role. What can a 21-year-old, given a congregation of 500, with no mentor, with no team, with no idea of what leadership and management is placed on that very honorable Mimbar-e Rasool? Is it surprising that, he will lack that confidence? And even if he has the confidence of being a great public speaker, does that make him truly a leader, a faith leader? Would he be able to exercise the role and do that? I think even if he's very, very intelligent, he will take a decade or so before he begins to understand the intricacies and the needs of what it means to be a true leader. And what I want to propose, and I've been actually proposing this to many seminaries for years, about we are doing a great job in teaching Islam. We have possibly 20 plus seminaries from different denominations, and perhaps we have another 50 secondary Muslim schools where they do very serious Islamic studies as well. So in terms of having the number of young people who are well versed in the fiqh, in seerah, in aqaid, in the studies of Quran and hadith and usul, we have no shortage. And a lot of these seminaries are doing a fantastic job, really, and there are great graduates coming from that. But one thing I notice and I see very, very clearly is that there is very little sort of training as a leader, very little training as imam, and this now is a prerequisite. And this is a prerequisite for who? Well, I run Kareem Institute. We have 5 large Jami mosques in different towns. We have 7 Quran schools. So I have 10 imams. So over the last 25 years, this is my own experience, that we've had lots and lots of imams. And yes, they're very knowledgeable. They've got all the good qualities of a great monk, actually. And this is what we really do wonderful. Our seminaries are fantastic. And, when you ask them, look how Darvesh is. Darvesh really means a Muslim monk, how a Darvesh is, Well, when people say that to me nowadays, I say, well, I don't want a Darvesh here, I want somebody who can lead my organization, who can make my masjid a center of excellence, of learning, of pastoral development, of counseling, and of interfaith work, and a center of community cohesion, really. That is what I want. I don't want monks here, and this is not a monastery. I thought Henry VIII had done away with those. So why are we Muslims aping for that? But it's really interesting how, I really do believe that the Imam has a very special role now in the 21st century and in our digital age. It really is a very, very different world now from what it was, say, in Lahore or Karachi or Delhi. You know, the requirements of an imam. This is my own sort of, when we put an advert for an imam, this is what I usually ask for. And, you know, some of you will say, my God, this is asking too much of a 21-year-old Maulana Tawazo, okay? You know, this is Maulana Tawazo was first of all forced by Jalaluddin to go into the seminary. It was never his choice anyway. So aren't you asking too much for an imam to have all these, you know, great skills of leadership, of management, of development? Are you crazy or what, Jenna? Really? But that is what everyone asks, really. You know, these are some of the sort of traditional and underlying roles of an imam. You know, he's the spiritual guide of the whole Jamaat. He is somebody who is really concerned about the character development of his own Jamaat. That's the pastoral care role. And then he's also somebody who's I expect him to be a civil society activist, you know, somebody who's interested in justice, who's interested standing up for the needy, who can bring communities together and living in a very diverse society, how he can work with different people. So those are the sort of important roles that you know, I expect the imam to perform. So what I'm suggesting, and I've been suggesting this for many years, is that, you know, we really, as I say, in terms of knowledge and understanding, there is no doubt that these graduates fulfill all those conditions. They've mastered Hidayah, they've mastered Bukhari as well, and they have a fantastic grasp of Arabic, and they can read the tafsir, and they can go to the original sources of Islam. But do they have these employability competencies as well? And some of the imams actually don't say we are employees, we're not workers. They'd like to be like the Christian Church of England vicar, who doesn't get a salary actually, he gets a stipend. Oh, what does that mean? Well, that means that, you know, I'm not your worker. I am really giving my time, okay? And you're just paying for my time for, you know, and you are just looking after me because I'm doing a great work which you can't pay me for. I mean, I like that sort of spiritual and idea, but it really doesn't work in modern society. And I think we better understand ourselves as employees and employers and have the proper employment contract and honor that. That would be, for me, a very spiritual and a proper way of doing it. Second thing, I think, and I'll go through those 8 competencies in a minute, the ability to contextualize the teachings of Islam. When Maulana Tawazu speaks on Fridays, you know, he's really brilliant at reciting those verses of the majestic Quran and really good at narrating those ahadith. But sadly, he's totally unable to contextualize them. You know, he tells me that hadith about Tawbah, that this man killed 99 and went to the monk for advice. What should I do? And he says, well, there's no Tawbah for you, no repentance for you. So he kills him and completes his century. He tells that story on the mimbar. And I said, you know, I just hope the MI5 wasn't there. You'll be in serious problem. How do you justify, you know, I know that's in Bukhari and Muslim, but can you look into what that means? What was this man doing? And what are those 99 crimes he committed? Was it really murder? Because the Quran says something else about murder. So inability to contextualize, you know, verses of Quran and ahadith, the society we live in. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges I think Darul Ulooms and seminaries have. And if the alim, if this great scholar, you know, who's been studying there for 8-9 years, is unable to make the verses of the Quran and the ahadith relevant for me today in the language that I understand, well, what good is it? What use is it to us? And I think this is where we miserably fail, because, you know, we're really out of touch. You know, just teaching Quran and Hadith, I'll tell you, you know, I'm a great lover of the Quran, and I've done my own translation of the Quran, which has been published. And I know you've got to contextualize it. You've got to put it into modern jargon. You've got to make it look relevant, feel relevant, and so people can sense that this is something that I need. So I think that contextualization of Islamic teachings is something that is really important for all of our young scholars. And perfecting the art of religious services. Again, we live in a world where, choreography is so important. How do we go about that? Again, work experience. Again, something which a lot of them don't have. So these are some of the personal specs that I think, we would all want an imam to have. So what are these 8 competencies of an imam that I'm suggesting here? Well, first, I think, the character development is so important. That is, the Prophet said, إِنَّمَا بُئِسْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. And he said, بُئِسْتُ مُعَلِّمًا. I've been sent as a teacher. The only reason I've been sent is to perfect character. So the focus on character development of the mind and attitude and getting it right, I think is central. Secondly, again, understanding the British Muslims and the British society. I think many of us, including myself, we properly don't understand our own demography. We don't understand who is my congregation, what do they do, and what are their issues, and I think we need to be helped. Pedagogy. Most of my imams do I would say nearly 50% of their time is spent in teaching, but they have no clue of pedagogy. They have no clue of, what is quality learning and teaching, because, nobody has taken them through that. Education management is not something which they're helped with. So again, that is another very important module. Youth and community work. Well, we get statistics telling us that nearly, is it 50% that are under the age of 25? Well, that is youth, The official definition of youth is 13 to 25-year-olds. So we are actually, can you imagine, you've got 50% of young people in front of you and you have no clue how to deal with youth. Youth are actually the adolescent is a weird part of our age. This is the most weirdest. The brain actually goes crazy. The hormones go wild, and it needs a very particular way of attending to, and I couldn't do it. And you need specialists, people who know how to work with young people. So is our imam ready? Can he do that youth work? And then leadership and management. Leadership, of course, I learned it hard way over 45 years, but I just hope that my next generation of imam doesn't have to spend 45 years learning how to become a leader. We should be able to. Leadership is something that has to be taught. It has to be you have to be trained. You have to know how. How do you motivate people? How do you get them to follow you? But if it's Maulana Tawazo, Maulana Tawazo is not really. He's there because he doesn't want to be there. He's there. He's been forced almost. Okay, that confidence isn't there. And sense of leading isn't there. Of course, dawah, and how do we invite? Dawah is a great art, The Christians they spend a lot of time on preaching and homiletics, and they have a lot of fantastic courses on that for their preachers. Gender equality, a very important issue that we desperately need to learn about and talk about and discuss. And of course, the involvement of women. And finally, fatwa giving and counseling is, I think, another very important module that must be in this one-year course. So what I'm really talking about is professionalization of the imams. I know some people will say, well, no, we want monks still, some people, but who would want a manager? Who would want an imam to be a faith leader and a manager? But in order to do this, of course, we would need a body that really gives it some credibility and accredits it. That's where I'm suggesting we have something called Imams Training Council that really sets standards of this kind. And I think until we have professionalization, we will not be equipped to lead the next generation. So this requires this formal setting of a religious training council. The outcomes would be this, a confident, sincere practitioner of Islamic teachings, able to contextualize and thoroughly understands the theology, not just the words and just the translation, but actually the impact of it as well, and its relevance to our society, capable of representing Muslims in any forum, able to communicate ideas very effectively, and leader, a manager with organizational skills, not just for his own self, but for his team and for his organization. But even bigger than that, I'll stop here. I won't do the second part now because I've been just told I've taken up my time. So thank you very much.